this is how I feel when people talk about Star Wars. Like, I need a basic glossary of like the terms and the references, because every day, every May the 4th, this happens to where I'm lost and I'm not going to lie. So do you have any like basics for me?
Well, yes. Here's just some basics. Your hero is Luke Skywalker. Your evil, I guess, the person that everyone roots against. The bad guy is Darth Vader. The antagonist, yes, thank you. The antagonist is Darth Vader, and this is not giving anything away. And what we found out in the 80s, spoiler alert from something from the 1980s, is that Darth Vader, who is the most evil of the evil and the bad guy in the Star Wars films, he is actually Luke Skywalker's father. So in the Empire Strikes Back, that was just a massive thing that nobody knew at the time. Of course, we all know it now, but that was revealed, and this is before the internet. So just imagine being in the movie theater in, what was it, 1985, and there's that famous line that Double D talked about, and where Darth Vader, he's fighting with Luke Skywalker, and Luke Skywalker, who uses the Force, Darth Vader uses the dark side, and Luke Skywalker says something to the effect of, "You killed my father," and then Darth Vader says, "Luke, I am your father." And it was like this massive, like, you've got to be kidding me. And so nobody knew that Darth was actually Luke Skywalker's father. It's common knowledge now, but before the internet, to see that sort of reveal in the movie theater was incredible. I mean, you can go on and on, because now there's been different offshoots, and there's different things now that are streaming, like The Mandalorian, for example. There's different characters. You can go really, really deep in the weeds when it comes to Star Wars, but that's sort of the basic premise.
Do you think he feels like he has to raise his game to be like in the spotlight of New York City? Because sometimes we all do this. Like, I'm going on a trip this weekend and I'm seeing all of my college friends, and I felt like I had to get my hair done. I'm getting a spray tan today, because you feel like when you are around other people who like raise their game, at least, when it comes to their appearance, you feel like you have to fit in with them. Do you think this is a part of, him moving to the big city, as opposed to like, okay, I'm in Green Bay, whatever, nobody cares. Now you're in New York City. Now you're courtside at Knicks games. Do you think this factored into it? Or do you have a different theory? Because I think you do.
Well, I think it's both. I think one is that, yes, it's the bright lights, it's the big city, but I think we're talking about the same thing. And whenever you go through something personal, it can be a contract negotiation like he went through. You can be unhappy in a city. It can be a divorce. It can be a loss of some sort. It can be a financial trouble. Whenever you experience some sort of extended amount of stress, and say what you want to about Aaron Rodgers, he was clearly going through it, or going through something in Green Bay, because he's been perpetually unhappy with the Packers, right? Just always unhappy. No matter what the reasoning is, when you have that much stress over an extended period of time, like, it wears on you. You see people, you've done this before, you see someone who, you can be any age, and all of a sudden you can see the stress in their face, right? Like, they've lived a hard life. There's something about what they've gone through that has worn on them. So I think that with Aaron Rodgers, the past couple of seasons has worn on him, and now he's got a new start. He's got new teammates. He's going to the team that he wanted to. This is exactly what he wanted. And now that cloud has been lifted, and all of a sudden it's like you can see physically that he's no longer stressed like he used to be. So I think it's both. It's a new start, and the stress is gone.
Should we be surprised? Like, I don't think a lot of people are super shocked when you see Jimmy Butler doing playoff Jimmy Butler things. But if you have been following this team, did we see little clues here and there?
We saw absolutely no clues that they were going to be in this. Truthfully, the fact that they beat the Milwaukee Bucks is I want to say it's one of the biggest upsets in NBA playoff history. And then, I don't know how much either of you are following the NHL playoffs, but, the Florida Panthers come up with one of the biggest upsets as well, taking down the Boston Bruins, the greatest regular season team points-wise and wins-wise in NHL history. So things are looking pretty good right now in South Florida. It's pretty much been a win-win already, just getting into the second round for 2 8 seeds. But, Chelsa, this team went from being the number 1 overall seed, and they did it in the regular season by knocking down the highest percentage in terms of team from deep in the NBA. They were the number 1 3-point shooting team in 2021, 2022. And then in the playoffs, that kind of regressed in a big way. PJ Tucker was shooting near 40% when he was still with the Heat, and it was a total collapse from his end in the corners in the playoffs. And Miami really got to the Game 7 Eastern Conference Finals, a shot away from making the NBA Finals, by Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo just playing elite basketball and the role players existing. And that kind of carried into the regular season. Miami doesn't retool. They run it back. Everybody in South Florida questioned it because every other contender in the East got better. The Celtics added Brogdon and so on, and the Sixers went out and got PJ Tucker. And Milwaukee added a bunch of pieces as well. So there were a ton of question marks coming into this season, but the idea was growth from within. The Caleb Martins, the Max Struses, the Gabe Vincents would continue to progress in Miami and take that next level. Well, that didn't happen. The Heat were as mediocre as possible. They went from number 1 3-point shooting team in the NBA to literally bottom 5. They had the lowest points per game in the NBA. Their pace slowed down. They were the definition of mediocre. That's why they were the 8th seed. That's why they lost a play-in seed to a team that they dominate in the Atlanta Hawks. Ups and downs all season long. And then in the playoffs, they have the highest offensive rating versus the Bucks through 5 games. They're knocking down 3-pointers like the team from a year ago. And you get Jimmy Butler at that playoff Jimmy level, just closing out games. Let's not forget, in both games 4 and 5, they had double-digit deficits in the fourth quarter. I really think it was a matter of the Miami Heat. Their 3-point shooting came alive. Their role players elevated their level. And it was a team that played over 50 clutch games this season. So they had a really, really good sample size of close games down the stretch, knowing how to win them, experience in those situations. And it's one of these things where it's lightning in a bottle. It kind of all comes together.
Do you think this is a good spot for Rory to get back on track in a tournament that is an elevated event, but not quite the spotlight that he had shining on him at Augusta?
Yes, and I hope he does, because I love Rory McIlroy, and he's definitely in his own head. When it comes to golf talent, he's probably the best golfer on the planet right now. And the only thing he has won against or in his entire career is the Masters. So it was a huge disappointment for him not to make the cut at Augusta. And he admitted that. I don't know if you saw the story a couple days ago where it was a big deal when he missed the RBC Heritage, and he is going to lose about $3 million because he missed that event. And just imagine saying, you know what, I'm going to forego $3 million because I've got to get right. And he finally talked about it because everyone sort of assumed, look, he's kind of messed up because he didn't play well at Augusta. And he said, this is his quote, "It sucked. It sucked." And he said it was more important for him to go home and get right than to jump on the course at RBC and keep playing. So clearly that tells you that he was crushed by this, and the talent is there to certainly win at Augusta next year, but this was such a good chance for him. He was playing well going in, and a lot of people thought this would be the time. It didn't happen. So now that he's right, now that he's rested, I think this is a good chance. I don't know if I want to bet him as the favorite at plus 750, but I'm rooting for him because he has become the face of the PGA Tour in lieu of Tiger.
Right. And I think that if there's ever a good shot for him to get back on track, it's at this course where he's had a ton of success. If you look at the course records, it's Rory McIlroy has the course record and also has the 18-hole record for the first couple of rounds. And he's also won this tournament, won it back in 2021 at 10 under par and won it by 1 stroke. But really, it's been the Max Homa and Rory McIlroy show over the past few years because Max Homa has won this event twice since the year 2019.